Hi and welcome to Financial Zula, where we give you information, insight and tips on financial topics. Today we'll be talking about budgeting. When I say budgeting, I know there's like a lot of cringing happening. A lot of people don't like this topic. A lot of people are not comfortable with budgets and budgeting, but that's why we're doing the video, just to give you a bit of information on how to do it step by step, how to budget and how to get it right so that it can make your standard of living so much better. So let's get into the video. So I'll be giving you like a step-by-step guide on how to budget, what to include, what not to include, what to look out for when you're budgeting, and then right at the end I'm going to give you some tips on budgeting. These are like pro tips from experience, so this is going to really be a great video. I'm really excited. So let's get into it. So how to budget or how to make your budget. So the first step is you need to know your income. You need to know exactly how much money you have. And I'm emphasizing on you have, not you will have or you might have or you should have, the actual money that you have. So you get the income that you have, whether it's a salary, it's an allowance, it's business income. So you get that money and then you start with that. So you know exactly where your starting point is. You know exactly how much money you have available to use. So that should be your starting point, your income. I just want to say, when it comes to income, personal income versus business income for people with businesses, you do want to split the two so that you know how much the business is making, how much you are making, especially if it's like a small business and you're not keeping actual record of the money. You want to budget separately so you know what the business is doing for you financially. Once you know how much income you have, the second thing to do on your budget is your fixed costs. So this is like, the fixed costs are the costs that you cannot ignore. So costs that you have to pay, you can't change the price for, you can't run away from, otherwise it will impact your life in one way or another. So I'm talking about like your rental or mortgage payment that would mostly be fixed, your car payment, your insurance payments that you can't really run away from. So those are the ones you want to start with because you want to cover those first before you get into the rest of the budget. So you start with your income, and then you come to your fixed costs, you take those out. So the next thing to include in your budget would be your semi-fixed costs. So your semi-fixed costs are like an item that you always have on your budget, but it's not necessarily always going to be the same amount that you spend on it. So your semi-fixed costs would be airtime costs. So if you are budgeting to have like away every week, then you would want to budget for that. You want to say, this is how much my away costs and this is how much or how long I use it for, versus if you think, okay, I'm only going to use my away for 5 days and then I'm probably going to have to top up on it, and then you want to include that as like an airtime cost. Okay, and then other semi-fixed costs can be your taxi or your fuel. So you don't always use the same amount of fuel and taxi money in a month. Maybe you are planning to go somewhere else, you're planning to go somewhere far. So it is gonna be on your budget, but then the price depends on how you use it for that budgeting period. So those are your semi-fixed costs: your airtime, your taxi, your fuel, your hair, your nails, your clothes, whatever you're doing for that month. So this is your semi-fixed costs. The next part of your budget, which I think is the most important part, is saving. So you need to save. You must save. There must be a saving somewhere in your budget. Saving is a game changer. It can change a lot for you in your life. Okay, so you can save for a lot of reasons, right? So you can save for an emergency fund. So I'm gonna have a video where we talk about emergency funds. We're gonna talk about that, but you want to save for an emergency fund. You want to save to invest your money. You want to save for future plans. So if you plan on going on a trip, soft life people, if you will plan on buying like maybe some accessories, you want to buy a car, you want to buy literally anything for the future. You want to save for January so that you don't go through the January trauma, you know. This is another reason for you to save. So just imagine the importance of saving. So you want to save. So when it comes to saving, you need to be intentional about it. You're not just saving so that you keep money somewhere, it needs to be intentional, and you need to know what percentage of saving or of your income you're saving for that period. And you need to commit to it, and then you put it in your budget every month. It is going to help you. Painful when you do it in the beginning, but as you get used to it and you get used to the benefits, you're like, okay, well, this is worth it. So saving is so important. The next part of your budget is spending. So like, this is everybody's favorite part. This is where you have money and you're just like, I'm gonna throw it all around, I'm gonna buy this and buy that. So this is like your once-off items. So every budget in the part of spending will look different, right? So this is like for things like drinks. Okay, this is not once-off for everybody, but it should still be in the once-off items. So like your drinks, your clothes that maybe you just need an outfit for that month. If you're gonna go out to like eat and have a restaurant, you need to budget for it. You need to know how much you're allocating to it so that you're not out there just spending randomly and you don't know how much it is. So like when it comes to spending, you don't have to be specific to say this is what I'm gonna spend it on, but you do need to allocate a specific amount. So you need to say if your spending budget is 1,000 Namibian dollars, then you are going to stick to only spending 1,000 Namibian dollars on all the spending that you need to do. So that like it just helps you know where you stand instead in terms of your spending, so that you're not waking up one day and you're like, oh my gosh, what happened to your money? Or you're not at the shop and swiping and then it declines and then you're shocked, So it helps you stay in line to know how much you are spending. And then like I would say for spending, you want to put your money in like a specific place where you spend. So if it's on your account, then you move everything else to like a savings account, you move it to like a different account, and then you just use the spending for spending, and then when it's finished you stop. If you're not keeping account of how the spending is going, you can do that. But if you are keeping account, then it's also fine, as long as you know, okay, I've spent 200 of my 1,000 budget, now I have 800 left, and then you can still spend. Before we get to the last part of your budget, don't forget to subscribe to Financial Zula, and don't forget to like the video so that this video can be suggested to other people so that they get the tips that you also got. Awesome. So the last tip or the last part of your budget is what is remaining. So after you have taken out your fixed cost, after you've saved, after you've taken out your semi-fixed cost, after you spend, what is remaining? What do you do with that? So an important thing that like people often forget is most of us have bank accounts and we pay for bank charges, right? So if your bank charges are fixed, right, you want to include that in your fixed cost so that you already catered for it. But if it's variable based on how you use your card and how you spend your money, then you want to include that. You want to touch on it here at what is left. So you need to pay for your bank charges because you're going to be charged for that anyway. And then what is left, you can also choose to spend it or add it to your spending if you would like to. You can save it. I would advise that you save it. And then you would also want to just know that, okay, I had this money available, and then the next time you budget, if that money was still available and you haven't spent it, do not add it to your next income. Just put it in your savings or put it away so that you know, okay, I always have this in excess, and then in future you can be able to plan to say, okay, if I have this in excess, I don't have to spend it, I'm just going to save it, I'm going to put it in another account, or I'm going to add it to whatever I'm saving for. Like, I'm emphasizing on saving here, but what is available is for you to just, well, if you're like a bit reckless, this is the money you can be reckless with as well. What is available is just for you to do what you want with it. But I would suggest that you take it from what is left and then you try to allocate it anywhere else in the budget, whether it's to fix costs. If you have any, maybe you can finish paying off a car faster. You can allocate it to your semi-fixed costs. Maybe you needed a little bit more airtime, or maybe you need to pay for Wi-Fi, you want to pay it in advance, or you can add it to your spending, and then it can be more drinks, it can be more going out, or yeah, you can save it. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end. This is my favorite part. That's why I have my notes out, because this is where I give you the tips on budgeting. 1, when to start budgeting. So I would suggest like you budget before you get the money. If you are very sure that you are getting this money and you know it's gonna come and there's no doubt about it, then you want to start budgeting a week in advance This is because by the time you get to a week in advance, that's when you know exactly what you need. So you'll be able to write it down, you'll be able to have a clear head, a bit of a clear head compared to when the money is already in your hands and you're like, okay, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to budget, I'm trying to see where to put the money, and you don't really know what to do with it because the money is already there. So you want to start budgeting in advance. I would say a week before the money comes in. So the second tip, do not budget money you do not have or you will not get. So if somebody promised you money, please don't budget for that money. If somebody owes you money and they're supposed to pay you back, please don't budget that money. Wait for the money to arrive and then you can start budgeting for it. Unless you're really certain, like a salary, you would most probably be certain, okay, my salary is coming in. Or if, you're doing a business and your customer usually pays on a specific date and they've never missed a payment, then you know you're going to get that money. You can budget for it. But otherwise, if somebody owes you money and they promised, don't budget for that money until you get it. Tip number 3 is budgeting tools. So what can you use to budget? So most famous one, pen and paper. This is where you just take a paper and then you jot down, this is my income, these are my fixed costs, this is my saving, these are my semi-fixed costs, and this is what I'm spending and this is what I have available. You just literally jot down everything and you be specific. You can also use a spreadsheet and use the same structure, or you can use your phone. So you just type it down in your notes on your phone. I think it's easier to follow this way. There's also a lot of budgeting apps out there that you can use. The most convenient ones are pen and paper, notes, and a spreadsheet. Tip number 4 is the envelope. So I think an envelope is probably like physical and you'd have to withdraw the money, but we're living in a digital world and there's digital banking. So you can also envelope your money on the bank. So you just slot them down into different accounts, right? So basically the envelope, the way it works is you allocate a certain amount of money to a specific expense. So for example, if your expense is fuel, then you have an envelope where you take out fuel money every time you need to spend it. And then when the envelope is empty, you just wait for the next time that you're supposed to refill it. You don't go take from any other envelope or any other cost that you're not supposed to take. Using an envelope just keeps you on track. It keeps you accountable for the money you're spending, and it just helps you also see how fast the money goes or how slow it goes and how much of it you actually spend, so that if you get to the next budgeting period and you realize, actually my haircuts were 5 and not 4, and I had budgeted to have 4 haircuts, or do my hair twice, or do it 3 times, while I ended up doing it 4 times, then you need to just say, okay, I need to reevaluate the amount that I'm allocating to this expense, and then you literally just add to it if you need to. Tip number 5, which is our final tip, is called reverse budgeting. So basically, reverse budgeting is where you give your money a purpose, right? This is where you have your budget and you're like, okay, your budget is not just driven by the expenses. All your responsibilities can be driven by achievement, what you want to achieve, what you want to get. So if your budget has a purpose, right? Or if your money has a purpose, then it's easy to budget. So if you have a goal to say, I want to give my parents this amount of money, whenever you save, it gives that money a purpose, and it just makes the whole budgeting process even more fulfilling. It makes, the whole thing worth your while. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Turn on the notifications